Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. And my guest today is Tracy, who is also known as a passionate spinner.
Yes.
Welcome to Fiberchats. We actually met at Swiss Yarn Festival, which is a great festival. And if you guys are interested, I'm actually going to take a group of knitters and crafters with me next year in 2026 to Swiss Yarn Festival. So stay tuned for that announcement. But to us, I actually saw you spinning while we were having bowling party
Yes.
at Star Festival. Tell me a little bit, like at what age, when did you start with the fiber arts crafts? Did your family participate in that?
Okay, so I've always wanted to learn how to knit ever since I was a small child, but I'm left-handed.
Oh,
So my mother was like, nah, I'm not touching that. Just wait until you're old enough and learn at school, because back then it was mandatory for everyone to learn at school.
right.
And then the time came, super excited. I'm going to learn how to knit. And my teacher just looked at me and was like, left-handed? I don't care. You're going to knit like a right-handed person. I was like, okay. So I learned how to knit in fourth grade and basically never stopped, but like obsessed from the get-go. Many years later, I went to knitting meetups and groups, like weekend getaways, and there were people spinning, and I was like, ooh, this looks interesting. I like this. And I really wanted to learn. And then before I could actually look into maybe finding a spinning teacher, I
Mhm.
had to learn for my education because I'm a arts and crafts teacher, and I had to learn how to spin because at some point in the mid 90s, it was part of the curriculum and you never know what's going to come back. That was their reasoning for all of that. So I learned how to spin in that um, education thing at university.
Right. And you were
And
in Germany, right? Like you grew up in,
yes, I'm in Germany.
right.
And yeah, after that, I spent a weekend with a another spinner that I know, and she invited me to come over so that I could, fine tune the things that I had learned.
I'm actually fascinated with countries that have the formal knitting and spinning
Mhm.
in part of the education. So tell me a little bit more about your experience as a child learning different crafts, like how in depth was it taught, and when you were a teacher, what new things were you learning?
Okay, so when I was a kid, we had to learn how to do basic embroidery already in second grade and do weaving, the simple up, down, up, down.
Mhm.
Also in second grade, then there was some hand sewing in third grade and crochet.
Oh,
We
no.
crocheted in third grade, and then fourth grade was knitting and cross stitch, I think,
Mhm.
but also woodworking and pottery and all of that stuff. So we did like the whole bandwidth. And I continued with having like the textile arts in fifth, sixth, and seventh grade. And we did a lot of machine sewing and woo. Did you hear that?
Um,
My laptop is informing me of emails.
oh,
And then in seventh grade, we had to knit socks. And also, I think sew a skirt or something. And that was just normal back then.
was it
Like
just
I
for
didn't have
girls
to.
or was it for girls and boys?
So when I was at school, first through fourth grade, so elementary school was mixed.
Mhm.
Everyone had to do anything. So all the boys learned to knit and all the girls learned to do how to woodwork. But then fifth grade, we got split up. So the girls did textiles and the boys did woodworking and metal and th that stuff.
Right. I think it's brilliant actually because it's
Yes.
it brings us back to our ancestors. It holds this thread of history alive through these crafts, and it's also like just so helpful in life to know how to do all these things.
It is. And I'm an arts and crafts teacher and I also teach home ec. And I think it's super important to have both of those subjects at school because, first of all, let's not talk about home ec. let's just say it's important to learn how to take care of yourself,
Right.
switch to the arts and crafts. I think here with there's a lot of there's not enough teachers right now. So the subjects that they want to like get rid of or shorten down are all the creative ones,
Yeah.
which I think is a horrible idea because not only will you not learn those techniques and those crafts and stuff, but also you will not learn the creative process. And I think for everything in life, you need to have creativity to get rid of your problems, you know? So I think it's a very important skill to have and be creative and be able to use that creativity for all kinds of things, not just arts or crafts or woodworking or whatever it is, but also for engineering, problem solving, or anything that just is thrown your way. So, yeah, I think it's super important that kids learn those, what is it? Fertigkeiten. I don't remember the
Skills.
English word for it. Just be able to do something.
Right. The
Yeah.
handcraft.
Yeah.
Well, so you worked as a teacher for a
hmm
while, and how did you end up making crafts your career?
So, it's all to do with my kid. When I had my kid, I stayed home, and it also has a lot to do with my husband's work because he's a specialist in his field and he would be gone 3 out of 4 weeks a month.
Mhm.
So I decided to find a job that would allow me to be home with my kid, take care of him and everything that needs to be taken care of here, and still work. So I thought, okay, what am I good at? And it just boiled down to knitting, spinning, all of the other textile things that I do, and also teaching because I learned how to teach, right? I studied how to be a teacher. So I just combined those two things. And I also had learned all of the techniques in the textile field for being able to be a teacher. And it was my big interest since I was a kid. So it just kind of all fell into place.
Do you remember like the first classes you were teaching? Like, were you terrified of going into the new kind of career?
So, oh, yes and no. The first classes I taught were actually back in 2009,
Mhm.
which is the year I started being a teacher as well. So, in the beginning of September, we had the first German Raveler meeting here, and they had asked me to teach classes there. So I taught there, and a week later, I started being an actual teacher. So that whole time frame, like those 2 weeks, were just so terrifying. But it worked out in the end, I guess. They asked me to come back to teach, so apparently it worked out okay. And yeah, it was terrifying, but it was before becoming a teacher and before doing it as an actual job. So I'm not sure if it was more terrifying once I decided that this would be my job or not,
Right.
because I had done it like a million years ago already. So
Well,
it
when
was
you think about teaching something, right, you're coming
Mm,
from the point of like you are the expert in the class, you are sharing your expertise.
yeah.
And I find that like when I take classes, very often there is somebody there who is like way more experienced than the teacher, and they just want to see if they miss some basics or if they understand it correctly, or they just want to see how other people teach. Did you have experiences like this when you were learning from your students something?
Mm, I don't think so because for right now, when I teach, I mainly teach spinning, and it's a lot of beginner classes where the people who come have absolutely no idea.
Right.
So, but I think there's always the opportunity to learn more. So even if I think I'm really good at something, there's always going to be someone who knows something that I've never heard of before. But it has not yet happened like this in class because, like I said, I mainly teach beginner classes or very specific techniques. So it has not come up yet in that way.
Well, talking of very specific techniques, one of your videos went viral, blew up on
Mhm.
YouTube, and I actually was just a few minutes ago watching it, and it's fascinating to see what's in there. So I and what I like about this specific technique is that frugality of it. Like use what you have at home, mix and make it your own piece of art and be
Mhm.
proud of that. So tell us a little bit more about what I'm talking about, what the name of that technique, and tell us about that technique.
So, if you're a spinner and you know who I am, you probably know me because of exactly this video you're talking about. I think I called it How I Mix Fiber for Bigger Quantities or something like super stupid name, but it is now universally known as a combo spin. And I actually did bring some yarns that I have made using that technique. But to very shortly and briefly explain what it is. You know, when you go to a festival and you come back with a single skein of yarn and then it's there and you do not know what to do with that single skein of yarn? Spinners do the same thing. So you come back with one braid of fiber, and fiber is usually sold in 4 ounce quantities. But what are you going to do with 4 ounces? I mean, you only can knit so many hats and so many pairs of mittens. So at some point, I thought to myself, okay, there must be a way to combine all of those single braids that I have. And that is what I did. I ripped my fiber apart into small, tiny pieces, and then I spun it up, plied it together. And because you rip it into small pieces, it will mix and give you a one big coherent quantity of yarn. But it's a lot of attaching new fiber, which for spinners, some spinners that are newer are like, ugh, I hate doing that. Why do I have to do that? But if you want to combine a lot of different braids into one big quantity, you just have to attach new little pieces all the time. So I did bring a few yarns that I spun that way. And I'm gonna start not with this, but with the other one. So for this yarn specifically, I had 6 completely different braids of fiber. They all had some black in them and some bright color, but the bright color was different for all of them. And this is the yarn I ended up with. So I combined the fiber to give me one big quantity, so I can knit a sweater out of this
Right.
and just have one amazing sweater that no one else will ever have. And I was able to use up 6 single braids of fiber that I would have not been able to use for a sweater otherwise. So,
And I think like it's sort of similar to what Spin Cycle does, or there is like other companies that do these things now,
mhm,
where they combine different colors. And so it's like it works for a lot of like you can make a whole sweater out of it, but you can also use it in the yoke of a sweater, for example, and have
yeah,
color changing qualities to it that looks so pretty
exactly.
in the yoke.
So the thing why Spin Cycle is super popular is not only because it looks great, but it also looks like handspun yarn.
Right.
And so if you're a spinner, you can use your handspun. When a pattern calls for a spin cycle, you can also use your handspun yarn because it's very similar. So yeah, that was one where I just pulled the braids apart like I did in that combo spin video. And then I decided to take that a step further. And after breaking all of the fiber apart, I carded it,
Mhm.
which on a drum carder, that thing with the tiny, tiny teeth,
Yeah.
and it mixes the fiber even more, so you get an even better blend. So this was also 5 completely different braids of fiber to begin with, and now I have 2 gigantic skeins of yarn. The only thing is when you do a combo spin, you need to make sure to have enough fiber to begin with because when you run out, you're screwed because
Right.
you will never be able to replicate anything. So you need to find a pattern that will be, where you use up all your yarn or you have a tiny bit left over,
Yeah.
just in case. But yeah, that's how most spinners know who I am because of
So
that.
There is another very interesting thing that you do, because you don't just buy one kind of fiber, like let's say your favorite blue face luster. You
Yes, my favorite.
combine different fibers. You mix,
Mhm.
you really like rebellious that way, and you use whatever fibers
Yes.
you have. So like, can everything be spun this way? Can you mix? Is there like any rules that you follow of what cannot be combined?
Well, the thing is, there's a lot of different ways of combining, right? What I just talked about, the first, um, the initial original combo spin is just pulling your fiber into like this long pieces
Right.
and slimming them down and then mix them. And I would, for that specific technique, stay in one area of fiber, like sheep,
Right.
and maybe even fine hair sheep. I would not mix something super coarse and long-haired with a merino. I think it just is a bit, meh. If you card it in the end, you can mix anything because you're carding it together, which means that when you're spinning it, you're holding different kinds of fiber in your fingers at once, and they make up one thread. And with the first technique, that's just making smaller chunks, you have like 2 meters of BFL, and then you would have 2 meters of merino, and then 2 meters of Corriedale. That works. But if it's 2 meters of BFL and then 2 meters alpaca and then 2 meters silk, nah, they're too different in their properties after spinning.
Right.
How they behave in the finished yarn and in the finished garment that you make, how they wash, how they drape. You can't do that when you card it because, like I said, all of the fibers will be combined in your hand into one single strand, but not when you attach it to each other.
Well, when I first started knitting, and I'm relatively a new knitter, like I only been knitting for 7 years. Like I started knitting as an adult.
But you're a baby knitter.
I'm a baby knitter. But like when I look back at my learning process, it was like a lot of trial and error,
Mhm.
and less instruction, so less following the books. It was more trial and error sort of thing. When you were learning, how did you learn? Like, what did you base your learning on? Were there YouTube videos, books, classes that you took, or did you also try and
Are we
fail?
talking spinning or knitting? Because it's different.
Let's talk spinning.
Okay, for spinning, like I said, I had to learn. It was in 2007. It's when I started spinning. I had to learn for my education, and then I went away for that weekend to my friend who said, it's for spinning specifically, it's so much easier for the absolute initial point of getting to understand how to do it. It is so much easier to have someone next to you who can say, take care of this, make sure that you think of that. Try holding your hands a little bit like this, and you will not be able to get that from YouTube. Someone can tell you, I do it like this, and I would make sure to do it like that. But the problem with YouTube is that the instructor cannot see what you're doing.
Right.
So that weekend was super valuable for me. And after that, I learned from books first and then a bit through YouTube, but not a whole lot because, when I learned spinning, there weren't a lot of spinning videos on YouTube. It very, very niche craft back then, and still kind of is. There's a lot more now, of course, but back then it was hard to find anything. So what I did get was a book by Tracy Boggs, who is the founder of Ply magazine.
Mhm.
And she had a book out about art yarn spinning, and it had a DVD with it that actually showed how to do different techniques. So that's the only video material I was able to watch when I learned how to spin.
Right. I mean, I'm fascinated by all different kinds of fiber arts. Like I went to Rhinebeck a few years ago and I took a class on needle felting. And I found that like I was by no means a professional after the 3 hour class, but I sort of got an idea and I could come home and do it independently and learn more myself. Do you think if somebody comes to you and takes that first class, right? Like they're coming completely nothing about spinning and take the first class, do you think they can go home and spin independently?
Yes. Yes, they can. So I have the approach when I teach spinning, when I teach beginner classes, I want you to leave with the general understanding of how this works and being able to spin a thread that will not break every 5 seconds. Because everything that comes after is a lot of practice. And once you have, that when your hands and feet are in sync and they know what to do, you're good to go. You can then learn from books and YouTube videos and Patreon pages. There's a lot of people on Patreon who do spinning specific stuff. But you need to have the initial technique down. And I think that part is easier with an in-person instructor.
Well, talking about all of those things, you do it all. You
Mm.
do YouTube, you have Patreon, you teach classes, you design, you have a bunch of designs on Ravelry, you knit, you spin. How do you balance it all?
Well, it's a good question. I'm not sure I am balancing it all, to be honest. I don't know. I kind of go with the flow. I know that sounds stupid, but it's just if I feel like I want to spin today, I will spin. And if what I'm spinning happens to be something I have not yet done a tutorial for, I can throw that in and do a tutorial while I am doing that specific thing. And then I have something that I can put up on my Patreon. Or today is a day where I just want to sit on my couch and knit a pair of socks. Then I will just do that and nothing will come of it except for me sitting on my couch knitting. And I try to do that approach. So when like lately, I've done a lot of cross stitch because I kind of needed that slow, tiny process of it. And I've been doing that just for me. There's nothing that I will be able to do with it in the end, or incorporate it into my work. But I try not to force that, um, to try and find content ideas for Patreon or something. I just try to do the things that I enjoy doing. And if it's something new and exciting to me or something that I'm trying for the first time, I like doing videos for that because I am a very open and honest person, and I believe that the internet is a very curated place where people show perfection that's never there. And I do not do that. So I will show all of the things that go wrong when I try something new. And I will talk about it. Why did this spinning technique not work out? Or what did I like about it? What did I not like about it? How long did it take me to actually get it? Because some things are really hard to do. And I will just put that very honestly onto my Patreon as a video. I did a video a few years ago during Tour de Fleece, which is a huge spinning event that is happening during Tour de France. And that the idea is that throughout the Tour de France, you will spin, right? So their wheels are turning, our wheels are turning, that kind of idea. And I I spun a real true boucle, which is not that easy to do. And by the beginning of the video, I said, "Ooh, I love this. Everything about this is amazing." And in the evening, it was like, "I hate everything. I hate my life. Why did I decide to do this?" And I just put that in the video because I feel like if you do not show the hard parts about something, people who are starting, they get a wrong idea about a technique. They will think, "Oh, this looks so easy, and this person is doing it so well, and it must be super easy to do." And then they fail. And then they think that they just can't do it, or am I stupid? Why is it not working? But if the instructor also says, "You know what, this sucks, this is hard to do," I feel like it's just so much easier for the other person to learn from that.
The Instagram, like you said, it shows this, okay, this is the skein of yarn, boom, and this is the sweater, right? Like
Yeah.
there's this instant, there's no showing of the process. So
Mhm.
gives wrong idea not only to other knitters, but also to the non-crafting community. because
Yes.
they think, oh, if that's so simple, I should give them whatever, $50 and they can knit me a sweater. So like that's where the frustration of how to price your handicrafts come in, because for the general public, they don't understand how much time goes into the making of something, right?
Mm.
So they just think, why is this person charging so much money for this hat when I can go to Target and buy it for $20? Like, why
Hmm.
is this beanie $120? They don't understand the cost of the material or what goes into making that hat.
That is one of the reasons why I do have an online shop where I sell some of the things that I make, and I always write down the approximate time it took to make. Because I have that conversation, I've had that conversation a lot with socks specifically. Because it's just socks, you know? But you as a knitter, you know, it's not just socks, because these just socks take me like anywhere between 10 and 14 hours of work.
Right.
And I had a lot of conversations about that with other people, and especially people who tell me that my prices are too high. When I charge like, I don't know, way too little. Like, let's just say way, way, way too little for the actual work. And then I had someone say to me, "Oh, you must be realistic with your prices." I was like, "Okay, let's be realistic," because I can be very sarcastic and very so I said, "Okay, let's be realistic. This took me 10 hours of work. The current minimum wage here is like 12 euros and 80 cents. So we're at 128 euros for the work time only." Then let's add the yarn and let's add my margin and let's add all of the other things that companies add. So we're looking at roughly 180 euros for this pair of socks. That would be realistic.
Right.
So,
I
people
mean,
just
and
have
that's
no
without
clue.
you spinning the yarn to make socks. Like if you actually spin the
Oh, yeah.
fiber, that adds another bunch of hours to just
Oh,
create.
yes. Spinning fine takes forever. And
Yeah,
then, plying it, because most of the yarns are plied in the end. So it's two separate um, steps to create the yarn, and it just adds in so many hours to the whole process. So I rarely sell hand knit, hand spun things. I do sell hand spun yarn, and I do sell hand knit things, but hand knit out of hand spun very rarely.
right. Well, if somebody is curious about learning about spinning, usually the limitation, and I judge by myself because like I'm very curious about learning how to spin, but then I'm thinking, oh, I will need the best wheel and I'll need all this fiber. Like, can it be not extremely expensive to learn how to spin? Can you spin on something other than the best wheel on the market?
Yes. Short and easy answer is yes. In theory, all you actually would need is one spindle. And also, spindle prices are like,
Right.
right? You can have a spindle for $10 and you can have a spindle for $250. But eh, the thing remains, for every tool, the maker is the important part. So if your spindle is balanced, that means when you turn it, it will not wobble by itself, but just like turn, you're good to go. Everything else is dependent on you as a person and your hands and what you do with them, you know? So in theory, if you want to learn how to spin, all you need is a good spindle, and you can get those starting at, I would say, 20 euros, $20.
Right.
So not that expensive. You can also, when it comes to fiber, it's the same thing. It's like with yarn, actually. You can have commercial fiber that is around two, sometimes even under 2 euros for 100 grams. It's undyed natural fiber. Or you can go for super nice blends with cashmere and silk, and it's hand dyed, and then it's $40 for 100 grams.
Right.
So, there's a lot of,
Well, you've been a teacher in school. So
yes.
do you have a feeling that like absolutely anybody can learn how to spin or how to knit? Or do you think like there are people who just like had it it was their destiny to spin or to knit?
Mm, well, there's certainly people who, when they take the tools in their hands, it just clicks super quickly and they're great at it. But I think it's not so much the person, it's much more the mindset of the person. So if you really want to learn how to spin, I don't really see a reason why you couldn't be able to, or why your body wouldn't be able to. Um, the same goes for knitting, but there certainly are people who it looks like it's easier for them, but like a short answer to your question is no. I don't think so.
I mean, when we talk to kids, right, they think they are unstoppable. They think that they can do absolutely anything.
Yeah.
So you show a kid how to make any craft, and they jump right in with this attitude that like everything is possible. Do you
Hmm.
think that we lose it as adults? Do you think like it's harder to teach adults new skills?
Yes, absolutely. Because we as adults, first of all, when you're in a class with, let's say, 10 other people, you already are afraid to be the one who takes longest to get it, or the one who breaks the thread most often, or the one who just has the most questions, you know? And I think that holds us back a lot. That whole, ooh, I don't want to be the bad student, you know, I don't want to be the loser here. I think that a lot of of that plays into the mindset thing we talked about before. I think that people who just seem to be clicking with everything so quickly are people who are just not afraid to fail at that new thing. And I am one of those people. I am I would let's just say I'm really good at spinning, right? So when I try a new spinning technique and it's just not working out at the first try, I'm frustrated and I get angry because I am good at this, but I'm doing it for the first time, you know? So I think a lot of that is the same with students. They might be fantastic knitters, you know, knitting the most beautiful and complex things, but you give them a spindle and they are like at the complete starting point.
Right.
And accepting that you're at the starting point and that at the start things just go wrong is hard for adults, I think.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. I just had this conversation with somebody. So I'm taking a group next year to Uzbekistan, and it's a crafting tour. So there's a lot of different crafts, but none of them is knitting. It's all like
Hmm.
we making manti, and we decorate plates, and we do silk block printing. So there's different sort of crafts, but none of us most likely ever tried that. And I love that we're going as like group of equals, that we
Mhm.
might be different skills of knitters there, but we all absolute beginners when it comes to these new crafts that most likely none of us tried. And it sort of gives you this permission to fail and
Yeah.
permission to
Mhm.
suck at something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's very empowering, like
Yeah.
to find yourself as a beginner in something when you are an expert in another thing. I think
Mhm.
it's very refreshing, very grounding, and very freeing.
It is. Once you accept that you are a beginner at this and that things are going to fail, you know, that is like a very important part. I think that acceptance, that once you have that, you're free and good to go.
Well, I want to talk to you about your YouTube channel because you
Mm.
started like 10 years ago, if not more.
11. It's 11 years in
Exactly.
December.
So I actually went and I watched your first episode, and
Oh, God.
you know what? It was very endearing. And I appreciated the fact that you said, um, "I wanted to do this, and today I just woke up and I decided, sort of, que sera, sera, we're gonna do it." And you
Mhm.
jumped in and you started recording yourself. And I'm sure with years that you've been doing it, it's easier in a sense to forget that there is a camera and that there are people watching, and to feel more comfortable with yourself. But what else did YouTube teach you during this journey?
Ooh. Well, one of my things that I still do the way I did it in the beginning is I never edit my podcasts. So I just sit down, I film, and when something falls on the floor and have to pick it up, it's in the video. I will not edit it out. First of all, it just takes too much time. Learning how to edit, I'd rather knit, you know? So it didn't teach me how to edit videos. What it did teach me, hmm, I'm not so sure actually. I maybe also,
But when you think about yourself back then, right, and yourself now, like it's a long journey and you tried a lot of different things. What surprised you the most about yourself?
that I can actually keep up with it for that long. You know, I started my podcast in 2014, 11 years ago, when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And a lot, obviously, a lot changed since then, you know? And keeping up with it for 10 years, I think, is already like a whew, you know? It's like that's a lot, a long time. But I also kind of changed my format around a lot. I used to write down everything, and now I just don't. And then whatever I say, whatever I show. And usually after I finish recording, I remember, oh, I also finished a pair of socks, or ooh, I wanted to really share this information. But I think I got a lot more relaxed with the whole process. You know, in the beginning, I planned out everything. It took forever to record a podcast because first I was writing out everything, trying not to forget something, gathering all the things, getting the video done, uploading it, and all of that. And now it's just sit down, record, goodbye. Something like that. It's just, I'm not as stressed about it. Or not stressed. I think stressed is the wrong word. I don't have that much anxiety about it anymore.
Right. Well, what does stress you out? Like, is there some, are there some like deadlines or anything self-imposed stress that the knitting and spinning brings you?
Yes. So my biggest thing that stresses me out is commission work because there's just so many factors. You have to get it done by a certain day. It has to be a specific size if it's a garment for someone. I knit a garment as a commission and I hated every second of it because the whole idea of it not fitting in the end, you know, or the person not being happy with it. So I stopped doing commissions. It's just, it stresses me out way too much. And I also stress myself when I feel like I have not been productive enough and I haven't put out enough stuff. And I really am in my own way when it comes to that because then I stress myself out so much that I kind of overload and need a break. And then I don't get anything done at all, which, you know, is like not really the whole idea of this whole stressing out thing.
Right.
So I do stress myself out way too much, but I'm trying to learn to not do that right now. So I've been taking things very slow for the last few months.
Well, when I watched that first episode, you sort of it seemed like you didn't really have a plan, a vision. It was more of a dream to like just see where it's gonna take you. Like you just jumped right in and you were like, let's see if anybody's watching, if if I can continue that. But like today we're gonna start with what I'm wearing.
Mhm.
You jumped right in. Do you have that vision for your business of where you're trying to get with it, or is it still just a dream that you're trying to chase?
No, I recently changed a few things about my business to get back to where I, you know, initially wanted to go when I decided to open my studio in my house. I have a little studio where I teach classes and I decided to take things back into my own hands more. I'm still teaching at my local yarn shop and but I have decided to stop doing that, even though it's great and I love it. But it's just too much and it's very out of my control. So I do have a clean goal or a clear goal in my head right now where I want to go. And that is basically teach a lot of people because I just love turning people into spinners. And also here I'm teaching a lot of the other crafts as well. You know, I teach knitting and crochet and English paper piecing and all kinds of things. But outside of here, I only teach spinning. So my goal is to keep teaching and teach more and, you know, get out and teach spinning. So I think that's the biggest goal that I have right now.
Well,
But
when people think about crafters in
mm,
general, they imagine this, like there's an image of old grandma sitting in her rocking chair and knitting. And at times it can be like this. It's a lonely business, whether you're spinning,
mm.
whether you're knitting, whatever you're doing, whatever you're creating, it's you and your craft. How did this community affected you and influence your life and change your life?
So I started my online knitting life way back in 2006 with a written blog in German. And then I switched to videos in English because I just thought to myself, okay, there's a lot of German knitters, sure, but there's a lot more knitters in the world that can speak English. So I decided to switch like that. And then after a while, when I did my podcast, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to a camera by myself, which is weird enough. But then there's actual people who watch that. What are those people like? Who are they? So, very early on in my podcasting career, I asked if people would be interested to do virtual knit nights. And we started doing those. I was so nervous because, you know, when you sit at your couch talking about knitting to a camera, you're alone. But there were actual real people there, and I was the host, so I had to talk, which is always freaking me out. But I decided to try that, ask if people would be interested in doing a virtual knit night, and people actually were interested. And we still do those like every other week. We try usually to meet every other Saturday. And because of the how our group is made up, we meet at 9 p.m. my time because there's people in Canada and in at like the west coast of
Yeah.
America, but there's also people in New Zealand, which makes this a whole interesting experience because one of some of them just had their breakfast in America and the other one's having breakfast in New Zealand, but a day later.
Right.
It's always interesting to see all of that. And that gave me a lot of good energy to keep going with the podcast because, you know, I knew that there was actual people who watched it. And then we would talk about not only my projects, but I could also see what they were working on. And then I started Instagram. I think I started Instagram before I started my podcast. Pretty sure about that. And you know, Instagram is can be a wonderful place where you meet wonderful people. It can also be a place that gives you a lot of imposter syndrome, I would say, where you feel inadequate compared to the other people. And I just try to find the balance and just not look at those people who give me the bad feelings about myself. And just, yeah, I met people all over the world because of this.
No, it's a wonderful thing because like I do Zooms for Stephen West Mystery Knit Along, which is coming up next week
Hmm.
actually. And if you guys participating in that, I have the schedule in the posts on my channel. So join us. But it's also like the same thing. There are people from all over the world, and it's incredible feeling. Then, like I get to meet some of them in real life when I go to different festivals because I love to travel to festivals in different parts of the world. And I come anywhere I come, I know somebody I that I already met online, and it feels like long friends. We're like real
Hmm.
friends in real life because we had these conversations and we had this the zooms and interactions, or sometimes even through comments on YouTube.
Hmm. I had a few interesting interactions at festivals. One of them was like, I saw someone who is like a lot better known than I am, and I was like, ooh, should I go to that person and say hello? And then I decided not to because I'm really shy in real life. Until I get to know you, then I'm not. And then I was like, no, 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 let's not do that. And then this person actually walked up to me and said, "Oh, I know you. You talk about spitting on the internet." I was like, "What?" So you know who I am? Why? How? What? What is going on? So that was one of the fun things. And the other fun thing always happens at festivals in Germany or Switzerland because almost everyone only hears me speak in English. So I had a lot of people come up to me and was like, it is so strange hearing you speak in German. Like, yeah, I know, but I do that like 95% of the time. It's just in our shared lives, it's always English. So I had a lot of people go like, huh? You speak German? It's like, yes, I do speak German.
That's actually funny. And it's, you know what I find on my channel, oftentimes when I invite like probably more than half of the people that's been guests of my channel coming from different cities that not native English speakers. And one of the comments I get a lot from my guests is like, "Oh, I'm not so sure because the English is not my first language." And I say, "Well, it's not mine either, so we'll muddle through it together." And that like
Mhm.
unites us all because we just try the best that we can, and it's part of
Yeah.
the charm.
Yes, totally.
Well, I hope I'm gonna see you again in Switzerland, or maybe even before that, somewhere at one of the festivals. It was a treat to have you as a guest of my channel.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time for me to be here.
Thank you. And I'm going to put all the information of how people can find you. So, guys, go on Tracy's YouTube channel, give her hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, it's 1 second. And it shows the algorithm basically shows her videos to people who like what you like. So, more like minded people find her videos and maybe subscribe to her Patreon and take a class if you have a chance. Thank
I'd love that.
Thanks so much, Tracy. It was such a treat to have you as a
Yeah,
guest.
you're welcome, and thank you for having me.